Welcome to the Healers podcast. I am so excited today. First of all, Dawn Davis here, and I get to interview somebody that I have admired for years. I worked with her in the past. Gina, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, but I just have to say, Gina is somebody that I always feel like is innovating and really taking healing and making it her own. And ever since I've known her, she has this huge mission in her heart. And when I meet people with a mission in their heart, it just gets me so freaking excited. So I'm going to stop talking here for a second. Gina, tell us about you, like what you do with your work so they can sorry, guest listeners can understand what you're up to in this world.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dr. Gina Calderone. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I help people understand their life experiences and how it is manifested into their physical body through symptoms and mainly pain, and how to make sense of that and understand the emotions that are deeply rooted there and how to heal in a different way. I'm a physical therapist, trained, and came out of school and just started working with the pain body, with shoulder pain and back pain and migraines. And most of these people had tried medication, injections, surgeries. Some had been to PT, chiropractors. They had just tried a lot of different things. And so I just knew early on, I just started listening to them and becoming curious and wanted to learn more. So I went and studied energy medicine and learned the emotional map of the body and just made notes. And then, one person, 1,000 people,
Yeah.
thousands more, you just start to see patterns. And so it's just taken a life of its own. And now it's fascinating and it's just been a really interesting journey.
I love that. There's so much there that you just said. First, I want to ask you because I feel like for every doctor or healer, that healing means something different to everyone. So, when you think about healing, what does that mean to you in your practice?
Healing means to me in my practice that people find peace in their body.
Hmm.
Um, they sleep well at night. They are not sitting in pain all of the time. They reconnect with themselves. They can feel their body in good ways and start to enjoy who they are and other things in life versus typically dealing with pain and enduring triggers and traumas and so
Yeah.
much more. Like they just get to really live in peace. And in my office, it's mainly sleep. When they can sleep better at night, that is like I know I'm on the right track.
Oh, I love that. Well, who doesn't want good sleep, right? I mean, that is the precipice of our whole lives here. So, what you're talking about to me is going from surviving to thriving.
Yes,
And you're
absolutely.
getting some, it sounds like you've had the people that have already tried a lot of different things. So by the time they're coming to you, they're probably more desperate to get that support. And when it comes to symptoms, right, that I always see symptoms as the body is trying to communicate something much deeper to you through these symptoms. It's like the soul's like, hey, something's going on in your life and you're not seeing it. So I'm going to send you this big headache or this shoulder pain. But most people, I know I had years ago a dislocated shoulder. And I just thought to myself, it's just a dislocated shoulder. But then I started, because I'm curious, I like looked up what's the spiritual meaning of a dislocated shoulder. And it turns out it had to, had to do with all these things around masculine energy and just over, taking on too much and all this stuff. Anyways, it made me ask deeper questions for
Yeah,
myself. I was like, wait a
absolutely.
second, wait a second. So I'm curious for you. I feel like you're such a body whisperer. So when you're taking these physical symptoms and then looking at the emotions, how does that bridge?
Yeah, like I mean, as a traditional PT, we ask, where is your pain? And it's in the shoulder, let's say. And so we're taught to clear above and below. So that's going to be like, let me do you have neck pain, or do you have any kind of rib cage or mid-thoracic area pain? So that's clearing above and below. And if they're like, no, I don't really have any areas there, okay, well, I'm going to focus on the shoulder, and that's the grief line. There's where we're holding burdens on our life. Like, what is it? Like,
Mhm.
what is really sitting deeply on your heart? And I'll just ask it in the most nonchalant way of like, well, how's life? Is there anything heavy on your heart? And they're like, it's like stunned by that question, like, what? And then it seems as though they have to go over to their therapy office where they've already talked to the therapist and they know like, it's almost like a different filing system, right? So they know that and they're like, oh, well, yeah, it's like I'm talking over here, or I've talked already with this therapist on this. And I'm like, okay, let's put that back into the shoulder now and let's make that connection. And then, like you said, the soul goes, yes, they
Yeah,
know that now.
yeah.
Great. And so then we need change. We need a boundary. We need to talk about it. Whatever needs to happen and come through, that's the healing. And
Ooh,
then all of a sudden it's like now it aches. That shoulder isn't that piercing pain anymore. It's more of like this dried up deep ache in there. And now, okay, just do these shoulder exercises, use this band. I need you to get on the foam roller, do the traditional things that we learned as PTs, and then it's gone.
wow. I really feel like you're doing much deeper work because
Yeah,
that I think so many people think of their body as almost, I used to think of my body as almost robotic. Like I'm just gonna do everything I need to do. I'm gonna, work out this way, push my body into the ground until my body was a hell no to all of it. It was like, no,
right.
that's not gonna be the way this works out. And I feel like in my, last 10 years, I've had to really course correct and
Yes.
start this deeper conversation that you're talking about that's
Mhm.
not just like, oh, my shoulder hurts or my back hurts. It's what is happening, And I think
Yeah.
by you opening up that question to people, you're opening them up to understand that they actually can, when they start to pay attention, they can start to heal themselves in some ways, not without your help, but I'm just saying it's like
Yeah,
that's
they
where it starts to
can.
move some of that, hardness or energy or whatever is kind of stuck in that place in their body.
That's right. And it gets stuck in that particular area. And then let's say we don't listen to it and it just gets worse. We learn to deal with it. And the body is so wise, right? So then it just shifts, it moves. And then all of a sudden their shoulder pain just went away. They never really did anything about it. But now all of a sudden their mid back area hurts. And so it's like this new pain. So maybe the intensity of it is smaller. It's kind of starting all over in this new pain pattern of some kind. And that energy just sits there and now it's grown from the shoulder to the heart region. It's getting bigger and bigger. And this is what I've learned with just those patterns in the last 20 years of looking at people, in which I've asked, like, I always want to find this pain pattern because when they do come in and I need to unravel the thoracic spine, when we do, because that's the present current pain that they're having, then all of a sudden here comes the shoulder pain and it goes backwards, right? But
Um,
when that starts to build and they didn't do anything about the shoulder, now it's getting bigger and now it turns into disease. It becomes more of a cancerous energy that starts coming in. And all of a sudden now it just takes time for your body to develop this negative toxic energy that turns into something that can form and now shows on a radiological image. And so it's like, I really think that our physical pain is the frontline defense of the immune system and of all of our deep organs. So it protects us from having to deal with bigger disease.
Ooh, so you're kind of what you're saying for our listeners is if you can pay attention early on and treat and get curious, then maybe it's preventing the bigger dis-ease that they're going to see later in their life.
Yeah.
I'm so curious because I know you're masterful at identifying patterns in the human body. For instance, you mentioned cancer. So I know there's maybe not just like one specific pattern, but like just I'm just curious, like your thoughts on that when you work with somebody's body and
Sometimes when I'm working on somebody's body, I'll just get a thought that this is a really deep pattern, and the way it's releasing from the body, like they go home and they have, like they get sick, or like they just have the flu, it looks like the flu, um, or they come back and this deep pain comes out of nowhere somewhere else, and then we start to release that. And it may take 1 to 3, 4 treatments to get all that pain out. I really do believe deep down that is the cancer, because cancer is pain. It's pain body. Because when we think about people who endure that path of pain, I'm sorry, the path of cancer and that journey, there's so much, there's that pain body that develops. And we need to get to the roots of that pain. And it just, it they need to cancer allows us that ability to look at what our life has become, how to be with it. We don't want to fight it. We don't want to F cancer. We want to
Yeah.
actually learn from it. Like,
Yeah.
what is it here to teach me
Hmm.
spiritually? And the body is just beautiful at shifting. It really is. It's
Wow.
unbelievable.
So pain is a portal. It's a doorway into deeper understanding of what's really happening, is what I hear you saying.
Yep.
And I think too often you, whoever's listening to this, you might think, like I said earlier, like, oh, this is just a thing that's happening. But really, what I hear you doing, Gina, is you're calling everybody into this super deep invitation to really start to listen and pay attention. And I imagine that your intuition around the body is off the charts. I want you to talk to me about that, because maybe that's not something that you lead with, but I am going to ask you that question because I can just tell that your gifts of looking at the body and understanding are even beyond probably just, of course, the pain is the entryway, right? But I
Yeah.
want you to talk to me about
Yeah.
your intuition around this.
Well, we can go back to sleep, right? Like at first I learned that I wasn't sleeping because my brain was and soul and spirit was still working in other dimensions. And I would wonder why I was dreaming about that. Why did I hear that? Why do I feel like my client 2 days from now is in my dream when I'm sleeping? And like I had to learn, like it was a way to kind of tap in deep to that intuition. But then I had to realize I'm in a human body and I need to go to sleep. And so how can I turn that off? And then how can I find that intuition in other ways?
Mhm.
But at first, in all honesty, I had learned that intuition is a muscle and you just have to keep using it. And so I did. And when it was like baby intuition and really learning, it was like, like I would think of somebody and they would call or they would text, or like I wonder what color of shirt they're going to be wearing when I see them. And it started off like that. And it was just really, really simple. And
Mhm.
then um, I listened to people's stories and I could envision the one thing I did learn that I did very well was I was envisioning their life as they were telling me this story. And I could
Wow.
start to see them as young children. I could see who was around them. I could hear very distally, I can hear what they needed.
Mm.
And um, I just started listening to that more and more and providing that for them throughout the sessions. And they got better and the pain went away and they made these humongous changes in life. And it was just working, and we connected well, and turned into like, how do you know that? And I'm like, I just started trusting it, trusting
Mhm.
my intuition. But it did at first come with like, why am I thinking about that dad over there at my daughter's volleyball game? I'm like, why is he like, why am I drawn into looking at him? And it really is looking at these intricate details of people and the way they talk and listening to their voice and the way they move and the way they're locked up in their bodies. And I would see how the pelvis is like posteriorly tilted under, and was like told me like, oh, they're holding in so much information. They're suppressing so many emotions in there. And when I could hear like a young child voice in a young woman, I could tell that they're stunted in their growth and somehow something happened. It sounds like about 9 years old. I don't know. And then from that moment, I'm listening to everything they're saying. Like, and I'm trying to look at why 9 years old that would happen. Like, who are their parents? Was there a parent? Was there siblings? What kind of life did they live? That's just how my brain thinks.
Well, that's pretty damn amazing that your brain works like that. And what a gift. And I want to encourage our listeners that intuition works in a million different ways, right? What
That's
works for
right.
someone else may not be the way it's going to work for you, but it's allowing yourself to open up. And that's what I hear you saying, Gina, is you started to open up to the way this information wanted to come through so you could be a vessel to heal other people. And I adore that. And when you were saying, I kind of got goosebumps when you were saying the girl, the night, you could hear in her voice the kind of like the stuck 9-year-old and like where
Mhm.
are the parents and all these things. So kind of I'm familiar with this, but I don't know if our listeners are, but kind of what I hear you saying is you're talking about like ancestral or like constellation type of information, the family constellation, you guys, is what I'm talking about. And how the family might be playing into their healing. So I'm just so curious about that, what you think about that.
Yeah, I think, since we're talking about that, and when I hear that, it kind of just gives me a clue that at around that age something happened. And so in my evaluation and as I investigate what's happening, I'm looking for that moment. I'm looking for what happened that shifted that person's perception and a lot of times reverses their power. They lose their power at that moment and they become really scared or frozen, typically in that particular moment. And then how can I bring them back to that moment, feel it, process it, and then usually throughout the sessions, I'll connect them back to their core muscles and to their vocal cords and connect those two areas. And that's what brings the body back online.
Whoa.
That's my PT coming in, like mixed, that's the bridge
Yeah,
of the
that's
energy. It's like I gotta figure out like what is that moment and like, oh, it was right there. And then I can see that it's just like it's just that soul sucking moment where they're just like, ugh, it's like someone gut punched them. And I see it as like the body is just like draining all of that experience and getting it out of the body. And then it's like, okay, I want you to breathe. We're going to breathe new life. We're going to breathe new energy into this body. And then I want to connect you with my background in Pilates and gyrotonic. I'm going to get you into those deep core muscles and bring the body back online. But that's tapping into the autonomic nervous system, which is everything automatic in the body and really shifting that fight or flight, that vagus nerve pathway, which it just took me a while to figure out that that's what was happening and what I was doing. As more research is coming out, more people are talking about it and realizing that. But we have so much power as physical therapists to really be that frontline healer of pain and help people release this deep trauma.
yeah. Oh my gosh. It's really interesting because when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about my body of knowledge when it comes to patterns and how I work with people subconsciously and somatically, and the somatic part being the body, right? But what I hear you saying, and I just think this is so powerful, is that this isn't necessarily for patients to figure out intellectually, right? It's almost as if by bridging their core muscles with their throat and giving them back their power, you're restoring the truth of who they really are.
Yes.
And that is big work, and that is in the actual body. It's not the mind per se, it's the body that's saying, "Oh yeah, I've been in this kind of maybe posture or shut down here, and
Mhm.
now it's affecting organs or whatever it's doing." And I think that's really important for our listeners to hear that the pain and how that trauma affected you isn't just the coping mechanism, which is the pattern of the behavior,
Yes.
but it's also how the body holds it and is responding to life.
Yes. I call it trauma posture. And so it just it really tells the story. And, at first we're dealing with the pain body, but then, it just depends on what types of adverse childhood experiences they've gone through. Whether, it's neglect or household dysfunction, or have they been through physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or all of it together. And it's just a heavy, heavy weight. And it does, like you said, it shapes the body
Mhm.
and it cuts off energy in certain areas and arterial blood flow. And so we just don't get good flow. And so I will sometimes when someone is so locked up in those ways, let's say, example, any kind of substance abuse, addiction, um, they might be so locked up in their vocal cords and not even understand any parts or any connections with their life. They just know this is kind of how they're living and this is what it is. And in that particular case, I wouldn't even really talk to somebody that much. I would have them roll on foam rollers or um, I used to have a gyrotonic tower, and so that moves in three-dimensional systems. So it's just having them move and just starting to move these patterns. And I use Pilates equipment as well, and just having them try to move those areas, and then they get stuck. And when they get stuck, I can tell that we're stuck in particularly like again, I'm listening to those life experiences like, oh, is this the neglect? Oh, there's a lack of self-worth here. And so my voice might change in what they can't do on that machine or in that exercise. I'm like, oh no, you got this. Like you totally got this. Like, and then it's like, oh, I do? Like, okay, yeah, I can do this. Okay. And it breaks through these certain areas of like muscles, tissues, and bones, which we know, and I know you know that tissue holds memory,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So here comes the memories. And so it's like, I'm just talking to them in those ways that they need to hear and move. And then just everything starts opening. And we just build off that. And we keep unraveling and unraveling and opening and connecting. And it's
And
just beautiful.
even
Like you
your
said, it's all in the body.
Yeah, and even your voice, though, when maybe what they didn't get in their childhood was that you can do this, you're helping them repattern as they're moving physically, as they're hearing your voice, they get to
Yes.
experience something different than what
Yes.
was in the past. And I can only imagine how healing that would be to have all these
Oh,
things
yeah.
simultaneously happening, but not even realizing what's really going on, right? It's like just seems like, oh, I'm trying to push through this thing on this Pilates machine or whatever it is.
Yes. It's
And yet
wild.
they're really changing so much psychically, energetically, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Whoa, that's
Have this one piece of equipment. It's called the Wunda chair, and I would have my clients. It's like the way you stand, and then you kind of bend over and curl, and you just it's actually the you have to lift the little bench thing kind of comes up as you stand on it. And it's very, very light. But the way you do it is you have to kind of find this balance between your hands and your feet. And it's very frustrating because they see me do it really easily when I demonstrate it. And then they get on and they're like, how do I do this? And when they break through, I'm like, just give it time. Like, it's okay. Just give it a minute, And perhaps they had some parent that was like, why are you doing this? I'm like, just give it a minute. Like, take a breath. Like, it's okay. We'll talk about something for a second, come back to it. And then they're like, I'm like, you did it. They're like, oh, yeah. And it's like that feeling of that breakthrough. And I truly think when you can give somebody that feeling in your body, if I can do this, I can do anything.
mm,
So it's just, again, we build off that. And then, and then I'm taking them to harder things and it's just a journey through the body. I don't think we can just talk to that pain.
no, no, no. And I think that's what people are starting to recognize. I think it's
Yeah.
being talked about more on social media. I think the word
Yeah.
somatic and the body, and it's getting more attention. And I know I've said this in my journey of years and years of working as a channel and a healer and working very energetically. That's beautiful. But I started to realize in the last 10 years, I was like, wait a second, the energy healing is supportive, but I feel like the missing piece was the body. So I had to start, that's why I started studying the body and doing all these things. And started to realize like, oh, wait a second, we got to move this out of the body. Otherwise, this is like you can do all these layers, but then it gets to this last piece, and it's like, I'm not going anywhere until you really service and deal with these, aspects. And so that was a big learning curve for me. So I love that you're leading and helping people, but bridging, like we were talking about with the
Yeah.
emotions and the body. And I'm just so curious for you, Gina. I know you were just talking about addiction, and I know a little bit personally that you lost your nephew to addiction, I believe. And so I know that one of the reasons why you're such a huge hearted healer is because you yourself have been on a journey. I know you do the work on yourself as well, which makes you so powerful. I would love to hear a little bit about how that experience has shaped you.
Yeah, absolutely. My nephew Jonas, gosh, I love that kid. Um, he most certainly was my biggest influence
Mhm.
and inspiration to become a healer. And I just wanted to know why um, someone turns to addiction. Like, why do they do that?
Yeah.
And it was pain, most certainly. And I just wanted to figure out anything that I could do to help him.
Mhm.
And he wasn't always there because addiction kind of does that.
Mhm.
And so I had other people his age dealing with addiction, young men coming through my office, and I'm like, this is wild. Like, and I was like experimenting with them. I mean, I'm a physical therapist. How did all of a sudden I'm working with people that have substance abuse issues? But it was really finding the pain body. It was discovering what has caused you so much pain in life that this is where we end, that we're trying to make this pain go away. And over the years, I've just learned that people use drugs and alcohol in different ways. Sometimes it gives them energy that they need, that they're lacking. Sometimes it calms the energy down so that they can feel more peaceful. It has a purpose for why it's in their lives. And my nephew taught me that, and gosh, I love that kid. It'll be 2 years on Monday, and he taught me so much. And I always thought I was going to heal him.
Mm. Oh, I can
And
feel that. Yeah.
yeah, that's maybe in certain ways they did. Our souls did. From when the time that he was a young boy, there's just a love there that I just often can't even explain. So, since his passing in the last 2 years, I have worked with a lot of 18 to 25, 30-year-olds that are coming in with their pain of like childhood and where they're at and this emotional pain. And um, they remind me of him every day. And so it makes me think also too, like how I want to work with young kids. And I can see those addiction patterns in a 9-year-old boy. I can
Yeah.
truly see like, oh wow, this is really important that we work on this energy. It's that highly sensitive kid who's very emotional, big heart, big spirit, and has to live in a world that's tough. And um just they have to be comfortable and confident in themselves in a world that might be tearing them down. And it's I can see how I need to talk to their heart and how to help them understand energy, because it's not like they have diagnoses. It's just understanding the feeling of overwhelm, or like we talked about earlier, intuition. These thoughts are coming in, and certain kids that are really sensitive and highly sensitive, they have lots of energy coming in that I don't think parents would understand. Oh, it's energy coming into their body, right? And they need to embody it somehow. So when I see a kid that's hyperactive, I'm like, we got to get them to a sport. What are they good at? They're good with their hands, they're good with their feet. Do they like gymnastics, skateboarding, bike riding? What's it going to be so that they can embody this energy and start to make sense of it? so that it helps them from, and prevent them from being so overwhelmed and desperate to make this pain go away that they end up using drugs and alcohol to maintain. So,
Wow, it it brings tears to my eyes what you're saying because I know a lot of addiction. There's a lot of addiction in my family, and it's been very close to my heart. And so what I hear you saying is that there is an opportunity if parents can or loved ones around them can catch it early enough that they can start to kind of course correct and start to work with them energetically so
yes.
that these little boys that are expected to be, tough or whatever they're meant to, in our society can start to work with themselves versus just fit into this box, right? And then try and numb and
Yeah,
dissociate or disconnect. And I
yeah,
really believe, Gina, that your nephew is an angel that put you on a path to serve and to help many, many people heal because not everybody understands this as deeply as you do. And so you're going to help a lot of people with this, even just listeners of this, because I think people think addiction, they like shun people with addiction or they put them down and they're like, oh, they can't, they have no self-control or they're this and that. There's a much, much deeper thing of that pain body being so loud and having been there for so many years that that's their coping mechanism, right?
that is exactly right. Because when you love this sweet young boy and he's growing up and he's just so sweet to you and just the most loving, caring person, you wonder like, hey, like, why would you do this? Like, and you just start, I did. I started to just look deeper into why would somebody do this? Why? And it made me think of rehabs and hospitals, and that has been on the forefront. That is the dream back behind me somewhere. Wait, where is it at? Back right there is in that picture right there is a drawing that I did 10 years ago of a hospital that I want to create. And it would be for addiction. And we would get to the pain body. We would treat the pain body.
Yeah. Yes.
I
Yes.
was trying to do that, and I met with a man who um, owned an empty hospital. And I was like, I've got the first bed that I want to dedicate it to. And we lost him, but I gotta keep that dream alive. So,
Yes, you do, Gina. Yes, you do, because
yeah,
there are so many people, and maybe there's listeners that can help you with this dream, but there are so many people in our world right now that need this kind of support because there's addiction is one of the leading causes of death right now. And so it's unfortunate, that it's so big, but
yeah,
that's what I want to ask you. I want to ask you when somebody, I always love to ask this question, and it's a more difficult question than I
yeah,
realized. I asked myself this last week.
yeah.
Somebody's starting their healing journey. Let's say whether they're dealing with addiction or they're dealing whatever they're dealing with, the pain in the body. Where do you suggest they start? Because it could be so overwhelming, right? Of like, where do I begin? I don't know what to do. But what from you, like in your heart, where do you suggest they start?
You can start with a piece of paper and you can write down a timeline of your life. And then on the other side of the paper, you can start to write your symptoms or when you fell off your bike and fractured your arm, when you went to the hospital for a broken nose or whatever it was that and diagnosed with this, or what was happening at that time. Did your parents divorce? Did Was one of your siblings dealing with addiction themselves? And like what is happening? So it's a timeline of life experiences and then how your physical body is responding, and start to make those connections and then become curious and look deeper into that. And you will draw some really powerful connections.
Oh, I love that. That is a fantastic idea. I'm going to do it myself. I've never really done that before. I've always kind
It's
of just,
fascinating.
yeah, oh, I have this and I just in the last 10 years I started to put everything together, but before
Yeah.
that I was just like, I have this
If
issue.
you really want to get interesting, then you can do your parents' timeline too of like what their lives. And then what's fascinating is I would have people coming in who had pain of some kind or they were dealing with some type of addiction, whatever it was, and they were afraid they were going to die. I'm like, is this person like so fearful? Like they're 52. And then that's when I had to ask more questions, and that's that curiosity, right? And they're like, oh, their mother died at 54
Yeah.
and they're afraid they didn't even realize that they were scared they were going to fall to the fate of their mother's
Yep.
life. It's fascinating. And I'm like, oh, okay, so we have to address that fear in the body. And oh gosh, that fear was living in the stomach and it was affecting the mid back or low back or something. And then it just moves and
That's the beauty. I have studied under Mark Bolan. I don't know if you've heard of him,
yeah,
but
yeah, oh
yeah.
yeah. He's
And
great.
I took his family constellation program.
Yes. It
And
didn't start with you, right? Isn't that his book
yep,
title?
that's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
book.
Okay.
It didn't
Okay.
start with you. And to what you're saying, how people unconsciously hold the fear of, when their parent died or whatever, they're not realizing they're doing it. But God, to have a practitioner like you that can actually help them connect the dots, because that's the thing. Sometimes on our own, it's hard to see because we don't know what we don't know. We often have
Yeah.
blinders onto our own stuff. That's why amazing practitioners like you that can say, okay, I see this for you,
Yes.
is so wildly supportive, and you can actually heal and feel so supported on your journey a lot faster than if you're just trying to do it on your own, right? I really
Yeah.
believe that's why we have these amazing healers and practitioners. I'm so curious. You kind of touched on this, but where do you feel like if we're looking at the future of healing and even, your particular role in it, like where do you feel the future of healing is going?
We definitely need to bring healing to healthcare. We have to acknowledge the emotional body in medicine. We
Yep.
have to make those connections for the whole person health. Um, if someone is walking into urgent care because they're having a panic attack and you're just, as a doctor, they're just like, "Oh, okay, give them this medication to calm them back down." If I was dealing with that person, I would want to know what was happening at that time right before that panic attack. And then I'm going to ask a bunch of questions to figure out when are these panic attacks coming on? Who are you around? Where is it responding in your body? And then figuring out where their brain goes and then why with the thoughts and then why their body is responding the way it is. And then, like you said, connecting those dots and then getting their body to respond a different way. And that is the medicine.
That is the medicine, getting your body to respond in different ways than it has been doing. That is the medicine.
And maybe perhaps they were stuck in a situation where they had this thought based off of something that happened in front of them or whatever, and then their body responded that way. So it's just stuck in that feedback loop. And
Mm,
they just keep getting shut down and frozen. And then, the chest gets heavy, and all they know now is this 8 out of 10 like anxiety attack. And people just keep like, oh, I'll just walk it off, or oh, I'll do this. And it's like, no, we have to deal with it. But that is the frustration in the healthcare offices is they go to their doctors, they tell them these things, and it's not to, I don't want to shun the medical system because it does have a place. There
yeah,
is a place for it with the medications and everything. And it's perhaps it could be more temporary, but we have to get to the roots of why these problems are even here to begin with.
100%. And I think that I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's what's missing. And I hope to see eventually where there's a holistic system or where doctors are communicating with each other and realizing that nothing is just of its own, right? There's an
Yeah.
interrelationship between all these different things that are happening. And when you were saying they get stuck, I see that with even my own clients where they want a better life and they can see it and visualize it, but then the thing that stops them is not their thinking, it's their body. their body cannot, it shuts down when they're going into like, let's say the big presentation where they might get the promotion or something, or they're about to go, on a path to get married. And then all of a sudden the body's like, I don't know how to deal with all of these things, even if they're good things. The body
Yeah.
that stuck, kind of because even it's not just bad events that make us feel stuck. It's actually when we're climbing to new levels of being, our body can get stuck as well because it's like, I don't know how to like take on all this new energy, right?
Yeah. The
And I think,
different feeling in the body.
yeah, and so I think it's important for people to understand that healing is not just for when the body feels like it's falling apart and you want to like get back
Mhm.
to feeling good again. It's also when you're growing and
Yeah.
evolving.
Yes, it's uncomfortable. It's
It's
like when you're growing, it's like, here we grow, right? And we're like going into it, like just this is so uncomfortable. And I see that energy too when we go back to talking about addiction and that big energy that's coming in, or I see in that highly sensitive kid. How do I not know that I have the next best world skateboarder in front of me? And then I'm just like, oh, we just got to channel this energy. It's really important that we figure out what it is or do multiple things to keep this child moving and move this energy through the body. And it's really uncomfortable. So I'll work, and like you said, when we're growing, I'll have kids that have already gone through and they figured out what they're really good at. And now we've hit like the spotlight. Like they are afraid of the spotlight, which is like now, they're winning the awards, they're standing on the stage, they're getting their medals, and like they're terrified. So I do an exercise in my office where I have them grow big energy. So they're really big. So I'll have them stand on top of the table and then I sit on the floor down below them
I
so
love
that they can feel really big and I feel really small. And they're just like, this is so uncomfortable. I'm like, I know, but let's just stay here and we'll just chit chat about whatever until that energy just moves. And then it's like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like I'm just standing on this table and I'm like, yeah, that's it. And so then I might just say their name out loud and they're like, oh, like, okay. And it just, we get used to it. But it's a visceral reaction and we get really afraid. So, yeah, I would hit it from all of those levels. And I've most recently in the last year got involved in primary care PT. It's a federal organization across the US where they are really trying to make a name for primary care physical therapists, where we can deal with more of the panic attacks and the, intense back pain that is sending people to ERs. And, there's just only so much that they can do. They're so limited. And those offices, those ERs, they're just packed with people
it.
where there is a whole other sector that we could be, we can create a facility that we can take care of these people and know the difference. When I went for my doctorate program, we had to learn pharmaceuticals and radiological imaging. So those were the big areas. So we can, understand and know the differences between the differential diagnosis, they call it. So we just know like, oh, this is an urgent care. You need to go see a medical doctor and you need to go get treatment, or this is something that I can treat. When all tests are inconclusive, it's most certainly emotional.
Yeah. And that's so true. And I've seen that so much over the years in my
Like
practice as well.
I really do wonder how many people leave urgent cares and ERs where all tests are inconclusive. Like, I wish I should probably stand outside with a clipboard and be like, how is the outcome? And I would just be so curious to know because it most certainly is probably emotional and we need help.
Yeah.
No, we can't. That isn't like, where are you going to find? You can't look on YouTube and figure out like, I mean, you can get some help, but it would be nice if it was a practitioner helping you through those.
Oh, yeah. And I
um,
think so much of it is suppressed memories or suppressed like emotions that have been stuffed down. And if somebody doesn't know how to work with that, it gets really, 'cause that's where like, we'll just take this medicine for your panic attack. But it's like, why are you having a panic attack? And, when you're talking about this inconclusive results, so many of my clients over the years are those people. where they're
I
just like,
know.
I've gone to this doctor and they don't know, and I've had this test and that test, and they say nothing's wrong with me. And then they feel almost like gaslit by the medical industry, where they're like, I guess I'm just like crazy or something, and I'm just making all this stuff up. And I'm like, no, it's probably emotional, right? And so I think a lot of our listeners can understand, like, if you've been down that path and you haven't been able to figure it out, this is such a great, opportunity for you to think, well, maybe it's emotional. Working with somebody like Gina or,
It
people in
is.
the
It's
local
true.
area. Yeah, to just,
That is the work. They,
yeah.
it's hard for people to turn and be honest and self-examine and be self-reflective and realize this is emotional because in my experience, I think people typically go to their relationships and they think they have to end them, or they think, and that very well might be what has to happen. But at first, it's just acknowledging and examining what's happening and around you. And most people I've worked with are very afraid to do that. And so we just take it in little bits and we just open it all up. And I just have this thirst for truth. And so when we hit those truth meters in the body speaks, and it's fascinating. And sometimes that's all it just needs is the truth. It
Yeah.
might not even need to take action. It just needs the truth and to understand. And then naturally we draw the boundaries, we use our voice, we acknowledge certain memories, whatever it might be. So,
Mm. Gina,
yeah.
how do people come work with you?
Well, if you're in Southern California, LA County, Orange County, I'm in Long Beach. You can work with me here. Or I do virtual calls, so I can help you make those connections so you can embody and feel the emotions and energy and where it's stored in the body and understand that. But I also write on Substack, so I write a lot about this stuff and I'm really interactive there. So if you want to write and put your ideas and what's going on, I will talk to you there. And yeah,
Oh
so
my gosh. And do you have a website that they can get to, or this?
yeah, it's letter C forcestudio.com. And yeah, you can email me at gina@c4studio.com.
Okay, I will put all your info in the show notes so that people can find you and find your Substack.
Thank you.
You are a treasure. You are such a gift, and everything that you're doing is so needed in this world. And I want to see this dream that you're talking about of this new type of hospital or new way of, healthcare. I'd love to see that come to fruition. It'd be
The
really.
three areas that I realized in the what I've worked with is teen mental health. So
Hmm.
the mental health floor, I would love to work with teens. Like I would create that department. I
Hmm.
would create an addiction department. I would create a cancer recovery department. Those are the three I want to focus on. And I'd want to do those all. Oh, and a postpartum floor, as
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
postpartum floor. Like, because we have to help the mothers, because if the mothers aren't well and they are not dealing with the previous traumas and what they've gone through, it's really difficult to connect with children, and then it leaves children lost, and then they can end up in the teen mental health area. But when it's teen mental health, it's really body health. It's a lot of trauma that's gone on there, and that's where I think we can really redirect kids' lives in that area. But I've worked with a lot of young teen girls, and I've heard about a lot of these facilities, and I know how it would do it so differently. So it'll be all body based.
Well, I told you this before the call. I really believe when God plants seeds in our heart to have this desire to serve the world in such a way that it's inevitable in some way, shape, or form to come together as long as you don't give up.
Why, thank you. There's been many a days I've wanted to give up, and certain days I'm like, oh, I'm done. And then something happens, like you say that, and I'm like, okay, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. I have sat in offices with very important people. I've sat with powerful people who have keys, who have money, who have power. And it's been a long journey of hitting the elevator button and going back down and getting in my car and being like, but I'm not going to give up.
Yeah, keep going because it's just a matter of the right time, the right people, something, the energy coming together. I really believe that because this is such an important mission. It really is. So thank you so much, Gina, for being on the show. And I will put all the show notes for people to find Gina. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Don.
Mhm.